In this episode, you will get to meet Emma, who became a team lead in a very fast-paced company last year. We talk about setting boundaries and being careful about your schedule and time in order to take care of yourself, your energy, mental space, and having the time to reflect on yourself and have an introspection. We also talk about how to unlock the best out of people and what the role of the leadership in it would be. And aside the business talks, which I think is even more interesting and fascinating, Emma is also an endurance athlete. She ran multiple marathons. She's constantly training for her next competition, next performance, and she's obviously so much into sports. And I was tempted to tap into that, to tap into how maybe possibly leadership and endurance sports blend with each other and how she's using the learnings of those two, the work environment and her experience at sports. I hope you enjoy it. Have fun. Lead and Feel. Hello, welcome. Welcome to my podcast channel. And thank you for joining. Thank you for finding time with me to have a moment of a heart-to-heart conversation. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. I love Fridays. They're my focus day. I try not to have meetings unless it's with people in my team. Just to have some time to just recoup at the end of the week, think. Not be in reactive mode. So I really like that on Fridays.
Does it give you like a space in your mind to focus on stuff and to kind of debuffer the intense week?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like in general, people think that the managers are in this kind of high reaction mode all the time, and that you like sort of live in these 30-minute blocks. But I mean, I need the time to. I need the time to synthesize too, and think about how I'm going to react or what I've learned and put it together. Sometimes that takes just taking some space away from things. And I'm also a little bit more on the introverted scale in the sense that I really like independent work. I really like deep work and focus, and I like these types of one-on-one conversations. So by Friday, I tend to be a little exhausted from a lot of conversations, but I also need to distill and like make knowledge for myself as well. So I find it works really well for me.
Yeah, wow, very inspiring, very methodical approach to and structured approach to your energy and your productivity, right? Or your effectiveness. Lovely.
Yeah.
So let's just take a step back a little bit so that people can know and get to know you. So who is Emma? What would you like to share with us? Who is behind this beautiful, curly, smiley face in front of me?
Well, I have been hiring pretty actively over the last couple months, so I have the intro to me down very well.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm Emma. I'm half American, half Dutch. And I always say that the most important thing to know about me when you're first getting to know me is that I'm an endurance athlete. So I train for Ironman and for marathons. It's a huge part of who I am. And I'm also a user researcher and have stepped into a management role. So I have a growing team of researchers that I support, and I'm helping build a team structure around them. I work at takeaway.com, so thuisbezorgd, which is a growing company merging with a lot of other companies, so that's also been really fascinating. I'll leave it at that to start.
Yeah, fantastic, nice, beautiful blend of sports passion and then a growing dynamic environment in your career side. And I can imagine that sports part also doesn't get you bored at any moment either, right? So then, just because I'm super interested, how did you end up feeling passionate about the endurance side of sport, especially?
So I growing up, my dad is he's a professor of movement sciences, so he studies like movement control disorders like Parkinson's and MS, and he's a researcher, and a huge part of sort of the way that he works and lives has also been through movement, of course. It's a way that it's his quiet time. It's the way that he also spends that focused time by himself, walking or being out in the woods on his bike. So I was always taught about this like relationship between the body and the brain. Growing up, they encouraged us my brother and I, to do a number of different sports, and never necessarily specializing in anything, but just testing out a lot of different team sports. And at a certain point, I realized that I think I liked the independence of running. I was doing a lot of team sports, but I really started to drift towards more of the sports that I had complete control over. So then when I went to college, I walked onto our cross country team there. So in the U.S., you can take part in collegiate sports. And being part of a sports team in college was also just a huge way of how I also experienced college. I'm really used to having a couple of things going on in my life, like work and sport and jobs along the side. And so, my community has always been athletes as well. And I think that I really like the parallel of the mental and physical training that happens in endurance sport, paralleled with also like in work and life discovery and learning. And then once I graduated college, I started doing marathons, and I think just honestly the epicness of it, like watching other people go across finish lines and seeing what they can realize that they're capable of, and seeing the way that other people help them get towards those finish lines, I think it's just really addicting to be a part of, and then to see what you can do yourself is also really amazing. So.
Oh, wow, amazing. I didn't know about your dad. So then I guess it's just, genetics also kind of predisposes in that. Perfect. Yeah. I really enjoyed, and then I think I will keep a hook in a moment about the parallel, like what you have learned in sports or what you have experienced in sports, and how can you then kind of apply it to different areas in your life. And then I'm curious about what exactly. But then maybe first starting with the whole leadership overall, since the podcast is more about the leadership and being authentic to ourselves. What does leadership mean to you, basically? How do you approach it? And what is actually your own definition of being a leader? At work, at home, at sports, you name it.
Yeah. So I think starting out in my career, I was always really interested in how do we unlock the very best in people, and I wasn't even thinking at that point about like leading a group of people, or I didn't even really know what management was. I was just following this instinct to figure out how we learn about what people need. We learn about how we can design systems and processes to be able to help them optimize their own behavior. That was primarily in the line of like physical activity and nutrition. But I've always been really interested in how you unlock people's potential, and mostly through something called intrinsic motivation, that people, the best way to do that is people do that themselves. But it's really rewarding, and you get that high of being a part of their journey somehow. Like personally, I like to see how I'm advancing, but I get even more of a rush to see other people around me advancing, and then that helps me to motivate myself as well. So I've always really followed that instinct more in kind of individual contributor role in companies. And then, stepping into a role now that I get to really think about building the system of management in a company, and within the user research team as well. This is a topic that I've personally been reflecting on a lot and trying to learn quite a bit about. And I think that I steer more towards leadership, for me at least, in like a coaching function. Because I think leadership can really, there's so many different flavors of what that means, right?
Absolutely.
Is it leadership of people? Is it, leadership in direction? So for me, my focus has been primarily on like, how can I be the best coach for people in my team? That's the role that I I should be playing. And it's not just me, right? I'm growing this team, so we're looking for more coaches and bringing people on that really have this hunger to teach other people and also get that high to be able to see other people reach their goals. And that way we keep climbing. Like if you set up a system for that where you bring in people that are motivated to unlock other people, and you have people that have this voracious appetite to learn and to be accelerated by others, like that's really that learning culture. And that's something that I really want to play a part in creating and stimulating. And I think that's really key in a leadership role, is to recognize that like you need to be you need to help turn things on and be an enabler. But in the end of the day, you're just trying to it's like being at like a big switchboard is the way that I've been thinking about it, or being at sort of a DJ stand, is that you keep sort of trying to turn things on here and there, but in the end of the day, it's about being that support role.
Okay, great. And then in terms of arriving to where you're at right now, in terms of your definition and your attitude to leadership, what helped you in terms of maybe some milestones, or was it an evolution to get to your own vision, how you perceive yourself as being a leader right now? Was it sucky managers, sucky people around you, or inspiring people around you, or books, maybe some stories you can share it with us?
No, really. I mean, way back at the beginning of my career, I've certainly had some questionable managers, but in general, I've been really, really lucky to have really good managers. And I think in general, I've always been somebody who I don't really follow rules, and I can be a bit disagreeable, and I always have this restless need to want to change things, which depending on someone's management styles could be really difficult. But I think I've been really lucky to work in places where somebody recognized that and wanted to do something with it. I think I've had roles created for me at companies because of that. And had people really, like my first role as a formal user researcher, I didn't even really know that that's what I was going to be doing until my manager at OneFit picked that up from me and really proposed this role to me, and I had no idea that that's really what I was doing, and that was a really good step for me. But that person really saw that. And they were themselves not a user researcher, but I think were really good at putting me in the right opportunities to learn more about product management, but also to really kind of set my appetite and my appetite for learning in the right direction. And I think that that's really important in leadership, is that most, like, when you're in this management position or leadership position, I think it's really important to hire people who you really think, okay, they're going to bring something new to the table, something that I can learn. You're building this team and cohesion of people. Yeah. And sometimes that's looking for people that you think, oh, this is something I know nothing about. But that doesn't mean that you can't help that person grow just because you're not an expert in that per se. And I think that it's really fantastic when we have like subject matter experts training subject matter experts, of course. But I think that setting up systems of learning for people is something that you can do regardless of having expertise in that. At least what I've experienced in my career.
Yeah. Perfect. Interesting. Then let's try to connect some way, if you see any connection, to your sports passion. So how do you think, what do you learn in sports that you can actually apply in your other areas of life? Is there anything that you see, your mindset, your skills, your what you're telling yourself inside? Tell me something in your story. How is it beneficial for you?
Yeah. I think sport, at least for me, endurance sport teaches me to go back to being a kid in some way, right? Like you're doing things that are so ambitious and seemingly impossible that you have no choice but to jump in there and try and figure it out. And that I think is made me a lot more comfortable with the concepts of failure and imperfection, because you really you experience it every single day. So I think it's a very common phrase that you hear from endurance athletes when we say it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. Like I don't do endurance sports to have one race. Like it's about all the days leading up to the race and the whole experience.
Wow.
And that means having days or weeks where maybe there's no progress. Maybe you're plateauing. Maybe you're even dealing with a setback or an injury, or you're tired. But all of that, there's learnings in all of that you get from that. So it's not just about trying to feel really good every single day or feel that you're getting better. When you're not, that's exactly like the moments that you get to learn something from. Like I'll give an example. Right now I have a little bit of a tight foot, just like a trigger point in my foot. That gives me an opportunity now to really learn about like, okay, how can I improve my form? How can I work on foot strengthening exercises? So those little setbacks are actually your opportunities to really learn and grow. And I think as I've gotten more committed to endurance sport and training, and more about learning how to train, the more that seems to reinforce the way I approach learning in my career, and then hopefully the way that I approach trying to create a learning environment in my team. And I think it's important to emphasize too that I play a part in that, but I have a group of people that have this voracious appetite for learning, so it's about just trying to continue to put the buzz in there and stimulate that. But I think because I prove that to myself every day, that you can change and grow as an athlete, that's a really natural transition into my career and other parts of my life too.
Oh yeah, fantastic. Yeah, so kind of creating your own environment where you just keep on practicing, experimenting, and then keep on applying, and then things are not new to you anymore, right?
Yeah.
It's just a different area, different dimension, but you already have experienced it already a couple of times before.
Yeah.
In terms of failure or setbacks or anything.
Yeah, to take your words, I mean, sport is you're constantly training and experimenting. And I think that becomes a very natural transition into career as well. Like, especially because we live and work in this, like most of us are knowledge workers, right? And so that constant seeking for knowledge and experimenting and testing things out is super important. And that's I think a very natural step.
Yeah, fantastic. And I was also very interested in what you mentioned about the failure, right? The setbacks at sports, in sports or at work or anything. How was your journey to, indeed, what you said, welcome a failure or a setback as an opportunity to look back and to improve from there? And how do you nourish that mindset into your team and to people who probably are also scared of failing? Because I think we've all been there, that failure could be seen as a end of the world or something to be ashamed of.
Yeah. Well, I have two examples for this. One is like a little bit bigger, and maybe one's a little bit smaller. Maybe three years ago, almost 3.5 years ago, I was part of a series of layoffs at a startup that I just absolutely loved. Like, it was a huge part of my identity. Really committed to the company, and it's super raw when you go through that experience, especially really early in your career. And I struggled for a little while after that to actually find my next role. I was pretty early into product management at the time. I was an associate PM with like maybe 9 months of experience in that, which is just really challenging to find sort of an entry-level job for that. So I just couldn't really figure out where to go next. And finally, I kind of gave myself an ultimatum of like, okay, if I don't find a job in the next, I think I was interviewing at a place. If I don't get this job, then I'm going to move to the Netherlands. I was living in Boston at the time. And that ended up being a huge catalyst to move back to the Netherlands. where I was still kind of struggling then to figure out what I wanted to do once I got here. I went into a master's program, and then I was just it sort of affirmed to me, like, hey, what you're really passionate about is right now is being part of building products and services within the fitness tech industry. And at the time, there wasn't really anywhere that I could find in the Netherlands that fit that. And so I actually I started the customer service role at OneFit, because I was like, this is a kind of company that I really want to get involved in, but they don't have a role really that fits what I want to do. Customer service is an amazing way to learn about a company, and it's an amazing space to learn more about how a product organization works. And you also have a really unique role there, which I think some people just I think it's something I just think is so important to highlight, that when you're making the step into your career, customer service is a fantastic place to get at the front lines of what everybody in the company wants to know, which is what your customers need and want, and how they're experiencing your product and what their pains are. And so in the end, this whole experience really catalyzed me getting into user research, a field that I didn't know anything about really. And at the same time enabled me to move back to a place that I really wanted to go to. And so there was a lot of floundering within that year for sure, but I really do believe that when it sounds so cliche, but when one door closes, another door opens. I really believe that. And sometimes you need that space to flounder a bit, to go and discover or reaffirm things that matter to you, or go out and do something that makes you a little uncomfortable, but will also help you to see other opportunities that you didn't, because you didn't put yourself in that position. So that's like my sort of extreme version. I think maybe a more recent version is that I try and I'm trying to understand a little bit in a role where you're interacting with so many people, and I'm also somebody who I react to people, I absorb people's emotions, right? So there's a difference between compassion and empathy. So empathy being that you physically feel what people are going through, and compassion being that like you can recognize their feelings, you can acknowledge it, but you're not carrying that feeling with you. And I think that for me, I've had to learn a little bit in this last year where am I exercising compassion and where am I exercising empathy, and what's the difference? When does that make a difference on me? And I had to go through some moments where I was over empathizing, not only with people on my team, but also with people outside of my team within the company. So, for example, parents that are pretty stressed out right now. I did some work kind of doing research with parents within our company, and I realized pretty quickly, like, okay, I need to take a different approach to this because I feel their stress.
Wow. Yeah.
So.
And you no longer know which is your emotion, which is not anymore, and then you end up being stressed.
Exactly. So it's just like that's also why that Friday helps to just take that step away, do a little bit more writing, think about like what are the conversations I really should prepare myself for, so I can make sure that I can kind of manage emotions too. Because I'm a believer that you can bring emotions to work, but you need to think about what you're going to do with those emotions. When does that benefit people? When do people also not know what to do with it? So it's taught me a lot about just how to say the Dutch word verwerk, how to process that. Because I think it's a huge advantage that I feel these things and I get that fire in my belly. But sometimes if I don't pace myself, that fire can mean I get a little too emotional. And so that's something that I'm just still learning about right now as well. Because it's I think, I don't think that I'm alone in that with people who are in roles where they're just interacting with people quite a bit.
Yeah. So I guess the authenticity part is like, really surfacing. And then where do you choose where to
fully open your heart fully, subconsciously or not, and how to protect yourself as well, right? Because in the end, you also have your finite resources emotionally, and where do you allocate them properly so that you can also function a bit longer?
Yeah, and also just like when is the time that you recover from that? Like, is it really fair that I would say, okay, outside of work is when I recover from that? Like, that's the time with my partner, and like those are also
wow, yes.
So that's why I think it's also really important, at least for me. But I also would sort of recommend that to other people that are in management roles. Is just like make sure you put in time in your calendar that's your time and not anybody else's time, so you can also process this stuff, get prepared for conversations, distill conversations, because I think a lot of it is just learning people dynamics, and that takes a lot of energy. And these are things that are not just this isn't just for managers, right? This is just for anybody who's in high people contact. I think it's also great advice for people who are user researchers. Like we talk to people, we interview people, and that's also pretty emotionally exhausting. Same for people working in customer service, for example, right? Like that's also, I remember the days of working in customer service, especially when I took weekend shifts. Like afterwards, you're just like,
yeah, oh my goodness. Absolutely. Yeah, like you sense all the subtleties, so many nuances, or indeed direct aggression as well, or anger. So all the spectrum of emotions can happen in one email or one phone call, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. Oh, perfect, Emma. I think for me, what you described about yourself is like kind of a beautiful embodiment of self-leadership, that you're also a leader for yourself, right? For your finite resources, for your own well-being. So you're not only caring for others as a leader, but you're also caring for yourself. So you can be the leader for the rest of the people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I'm always interested how people approach leadership per se, because you can think of many different areas how you see yourself as a leader towards others at work or towards yourself, like how you take ownership of your own actions, but also of your own health or your well-being overall, and how you prioritize it, especially for your Fridays.
Yeah, I think like even though every person on a team plays a different role, so I play a very different role than the people like our individual contributors that are really the experts at the front lines of collecting insights and making sure that those help influence product decisions. And obviously we do play very different roles, but I still think that it's really important that it's I really want to create an environment where they can do their best work, and part of that's that I also need to demonstrate that, right? So if I'm trying to preach the value of focus time and I don't take focus time, that's also, even though we do different things, like that's then harder for people to do. And I have sort of this wacko schedule that I work in as well, and I'm trying to think like, okay, how does that have an impact on people? It feels great for me, but maybe that doesn't feel great for other people, and so I just have more sort of heightened awareness of how does my behavior either how does it help reinforce things, or how does it send the wrong message? So I'm also just constantly thinking about what messages am I sending with my behavior or with my words. And I find that very fascinating, like sometimes also very exhausting, but really important, I think.
Yeah, very conscious and very aware and mindful in how you want to be seen and what you actually are preaching, right? What is indeed true Emma. And then I think we are slowly coming towards the end, Emma. I think I'm just still interested about a few topics. I think there's the same topic, but what are your latest challenges in terms of leadership or authenticity or emotions? You mentioned, indeed not taking emotions and inheriting them from other people. Is there anything else that you are struggling or find fascinating still to go through as a lesson for yourself recently?
I think something that's really top of mind for me is just, especially in this time where I can step back and think a little bit, is making sure that I'm asking the right questions. And so when I talked about like how your words really matter, I think that that's like my most powerful asset in the role that I have. And so often I think people can be just like, we champion being busy, right? And just like running from one thing to the next. But in the end of the day, like that sort of, we're multitasking, and multitasking makes us stupider. And then I can ask, if I'm completely sort of fried by the time I have a one-on-one with someone, that's precious time that I'm wasting for that person if I'm not asking useful things. And so I try and spend some time thinking every week about like, okay, what are some one-on-one questions that I can ask this week? To me, I feel like I'm failing in a session if I feel like the person that I'm talking to, a person on my team, isn't processing or learning something or figuring something out in the time that we're talking. And it doesn't have to be all the time, right? Like people also sometimes need a break from like trying to grow, and also just want to connect and talk about what's top of mind for them. And it's okay. It doesn't have to be all the time. But if it's this pattern that I'm recognizing, then I'm like, okay, I need to take that step back and think a little bit about like, am I not asking the right types of questions? And so that's also really like, I'm a researcher too, so this is also a very natural transition. Instead of talking to our customers and trying to figure out what they need, I'm doing that with the people in my team, and just making sure we always start. Always start with just understanding what's going on with them, what's top of mind, but also making sure that we dedicate some time to just doing some learning together too.
And how can you say, or how can you tell that you are asking the right questions? Is it the feeling, the connection between the two of you, or something that has been created during that conversation?
I think sometimes there's like an audible, like someone will be like, oh yeah, okay, I see it now this way. Or, I mean, in general, it's not because I'm not giving the answers, but hopefully I've asked the right type of question that somebody comes up with an answer. So if they're coming to me with like, I have this challenge, and what do you think about this? Like, hopefully they come up with the solution themselves, or they come up with some action items, or there's that sort of that moment of realization that happens, of clarity. So I think that's that to me is a very that's a very satisfying thing too. It's hard to kind of have a measure of that necessarily, but that's really what I strive to see. It's just it's so cool to see when people answer their own questions with something that you would think never would have thought about that. That's great. And it's really cool to think, okay, maybe I can ask the right thing to get their thought process stimulated the right way. So for me, I'm just trying to constantly learn, how do I make sure I'm asking the right questions and using the right wording, and that's to me the most important thing.
Yeah, so that you don't have to come up with solutions, but to kind of let them catalyze through you, so that the answer comes on the other side, right? Yeah. I think it's the most rewarding thing, at least to me as a manager, as a leader, that you just let the person get to the aha moment with just being there, and that's already enough.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Super nice, Emma. Lovely. I'm very inspired. I really enjoyed your how you call it? I'm not sure how even I can really phrase it in words, but your beautiful, active approach to being a leader and to really taking the ownership and care for the people. And what you said, like, am I right, asking the right questions and being really critical about to add value to you and to your team, and to really keep on moving up or forward, so to speak. So I really enjoyed that part, or at least that's what I got out of your answers so far. So I think we're going to slowly come towards the end. And before we finish, officially, is there anything else that is on your heart or in your mind that you still want to share, so it will make you feel even more satisfied with the conversation?
Oh, I'm really looking forward to the last question, which is about recommendations. I think in general, I'm really, really passionate about this. Like how do we as managers help people design design their work life in a way that brings out the best in them. And that means like, just making sure that you have moments in your day that are about, that you have collaboration moments, but you have independent moments, you have focus time, you have time that you're stepping away from the screens, that you're not reacting, that you're broadening your horizons and thinking about the world rather than, just being concentrated on what you're doing right now at work. And I think as managers, we really have a responsibility to, honestly, to optimize the people that are in your team and in your company. And so that for me is a very exciting way to see what your role is. And that goes back to that coaching philosophy. Like ultimately, you put the players on the field, the experts, try and help them see the field, and then let them, watch them play the game and see how you can help. But that's me as a really that has a lot of learning attached to it too. So
yeah. But I think that's what makes it beautiful, right? There are no finite answers to anything, and we just keep on changing, iterating, and learning something on the way. Fuck ups here and there, and then keep on going. Yeah. Super. So the question that you are excited about, just can you share with us something that you have recently read? I see you and following your Instagram, so then I see so many titles in the on your pictures. I'm like, oh my god, this is nice, and this is nice. Oh, I can't keep up. So something that struck your heart, your mind recently, or triggers you maybe.
I'm a big reader, and I have that from my mother. We learned recently, she told me that she used to walk to work reading a book, so I haven't done that yet, but anyway, I'm reading a fantastic book by Adam Grant called I think it's called Think Again. Oh no, I'm going to forget what it's called.
I will check it later and right now. Yes.
It's his newest book, and it's about this whole process of beginner's mindset of always questioning what you know. And I was reading it, I was already loving the book, and then I got to a section which was about teaching students how to challenge knowledge. And I turned the page, and he was describing my elementary school. And I was my whole body temperature went up. I was like, this is so cool to read. We basically had like an amazing educator at my elementary school who introduced this whole concept of experiential learning. So essentially like he wouldn't start the year with telling us what we were going to learn, but rather gave us these like questions that we had to grapple with. And then we went on this process of discovery for the whole year. And that to me was really cool to read, because I was like, I know that it was a very cool education, but it's really wonderful to see that years later has a huge impact on how I live life in terms of being an athlete, but also how I approach my career. And that starts with just the fact that somebody really planted the seeds for not telling me what I needed to learn, but really how to learn.
And that's
really cool. So I really recommend that book. I really
super. Thank you.
Organizational psychologist, which is another area I'm super interested in.
Oh, perfect. Lovely. I will check it out, and I will leave it on the description. Super, Emma. I think, yes, that's the end of our episode, our conversation. I enjoyed it a lot. Is there anywhere you want people to find you in case they want to reach out to you for questions? Is there any way that, we can get a bit deeper or follow you? Can you tell us where?
LinkedIn is the best spot.
Okay, perfect. Yes, and then I will post your LinkedIn link in the description. Super. Then thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. I really enjoyed it. I'm very inspired for a Friday, end of the day. Super lovely energy. And I learned a lot from you, Emma. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And until next time. And
Sounds good.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.